Well, welcome to Caring for New Hampshire, a ministry of Concerned Women for America of New Hampshire. I'm Elaine Driscoll, State Director, and you are here with us today on our Upfront and Personal series. We're continuing today again with our presidential candidates for 2012, and today we have with us presidential candidate Vern Wuensche. And I'm just very excited to have him here with us, and I want to say welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit, what is it like being on the campaign trail? How's it been treating you? You've been doing this for a few months now,
yeah,
right?
Well, I've been doing it in New Hampshire for a few months, and I was in Iowa since May, not too strong during the summer. I run a business. But the people of New Hampshire and the people of Iowa understand the political process so well. You really don't realize how well you understand it. And Dick Morris of Fox News commented that the average voter in Iowa was equivalent to a political consultant with their wisdom. And from a Texas standpoint, that's equivalent to a delegate to a district convention. And the same way with New Hampshire. And I strongly support y'all's first in the nation caucus there and first in the nation primary. In fact, Mr. Gardner with the Secretary of State's office, he and I share a very strong opinion about promoting business throughout the state of New Hampshire. And of course, this helps that to a large degree.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for supporting New Hampshire, because we really do feel like that we play a strong role in helping our country decide who our future leaders will be. And every single candidate that I have met over the years has loved coming here, because they can walk our streets, go in our restaurants, the gas stations, wherever, the malls, meet people, talk to people, and people will talk to them and share their ideas and express their opinions, and they find it very helpful. So,
well, this Texan appreciates the fact that the independent, liberty-oriented attitude of the people of New Hampshire, which we in Texas, of course, do also.
Oh, awesome. Yay. Sister state it should
That's
be.
Right. That's right.
Well, Mr. Wuensche, share with me a little bit what's brought you to the point where you wanted to run, put your hat in the ring for presidential candidate. I mean, that's a big ring. And what is it what's your main issue that you would really like to share?
Well, I studied the presidency really for about 40 years. I've been active in business and politics parallel for 40 years, and active in my church, of course, all my life, and been an elder in my church for like 21 years in 2 Missouri Synod Lutheran churches in Houston. And so that my faith's very important to me, and I've always believed that if your faith can be shared on a larger scale, I'm a business person, that sometimes you can do a lot of good in that way. And so for 40 years, I've studied the presidency, and what's occurred to me is that it's an office that requires personal qualities to make good decisions for citizen customers of the government. And in observing the different candidates over the years, our process tends to require funding and being known, somewhat of a celebrity to win, but those qualities have very little to do with being a good president. And so after a number of years of that, I decided a few years back to make a run and see what I could do. And so in 2008, I ran and was 10th in Iowa and was 10th in New Hampshire with very little funding, spent $36,000, spent a year. And so this year I decided, well, can I do better than that? Well, in Iowa, I believe that I'm probably was 7th in terms of the candidates. There are fewer candidates. I placed just outside most of the known candidates, basically. And here, pretty much the same. I should be 6th, 7th, or 8th, I would guess, if things work out well. And so I'm trying to communicate to an average person that has the skills. I have a CPA. I have 2 degrees from the University of Texas. I've run a business for 35 years, 3rd oldest in Houston in residential construction. One of my competitors built George Bush Sr.'s house in Houston. And I feel like there are probably 10,000 people like me that are capable of doing the job. And if they can look at me, not tall, not particularly good looking, without funding and not well known, and I do okay, maybe it'll inspire some people with more than that to run in future races, and Americans will have a larger selection of candidates to choose from.
Well, you are right. It's definitely a strong reflection on the fact that that's the way our government is set up, and it's supposed to be for the citizen, the average citizen, to be able to have access to all of the elected positions, not just the ones on the lower echelon or within the town level. And so that's wonderful that you're demonstrating that ability. I mean, 7th is pretty darn good.
Well, satisfying to me. Y'all have like 400 people in your legislature,
yes.
And I love your citizen legislature because it's truly a citizen government.
It truly is. It truly is. And when you go into our general court and you realize that it's your neighbor, it's the guy that runs the store down the street, and it's really neat. It's very unique, and I have lived in other states where sometimes the elected officials are so distant from you, you only see them when they pop up on the news. But here in New Hampshire, everybody's everywhere. I mean, you're very upfront and personal.
Yeah, that's refreshing, though, too.
It is. It is. Before we started the show, you shared a little bit with me that you also were very, on some of the social issues, you felt very, very comfortable about the fact that you felt that pro-life is very important and important to supporting our culture. And I really appreciate that, and the fact that you're willing to share that so openly, because I know for the organization that I'm with, Concerned Women for America, that is a very important issue for us. And we are very life-oriented, not only for the unborn, but also for the end of life as well. We believe that everyone deserves dignity.
And the healthcare system will put that in jeopardy in a big way.
You are absolutely
correct.
That's
been passed, and it's just a matter, this is just going to be a business proposition. We have this much money, and you have a malady that's going to cost a lot of money to take care of, and we're not going to be able to fund it. So, Michelle Bachmann talking about death panels, that's not entirely inaccurate.
It is not.
It's because you will have bureaucrats making decisions on that, on life or death, which to me, I'm very conservative on all the social issues. Probably very few people could get to the right of me. On the pro-life issue, I support, obviously, life begins at conception, and abortion is, terminating a life would only be in the case maybe of saving the life of the mother. Any other case, I support life. And, on other social issues, gay marriage, I just was at an event with New England College Republicans where he was speaking, and he handled the issue extremely well when he was asked by people in the audience about the gay marriage issue. And he fundamentally said, well, it's a legal process, and if you accept gay marriage, then you're going to have to accept polygamy also, essentially, in the shorthand. And it made it real clear, he handled it well, that logically you can't just choose one, not even in our American system. And to me, the cultural issues are parallel with economic issues, or maybe even superior to economic issues. You really need both to take care of, but if you don't take care of cultural issues, this country's, it's not going to be a place where most of us would want to live 30 years from now.
Well, that's a very good point, and our founders well knew that the basic engine of our economy and our social structure, our culture, is the family, which is a husband and a wife who are bonded together to raise children who are healthy, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and therefore become productive citizens. And so once we start tearing that fabric apart, then you start having more and more problems, which is what we're seeing in our culture right now. We have children who are, I was just looking at statistics this afternoon about the STDs and HIV and all of these different things that you didn't even hear about until...
If you violate God's design,
absolutely.
God designed, and you see this throughout, if you really examine your life, you realize His design is for the benefit of humans totally, and if he designed a man and a woman for a marriage, then that needs to be followed. And if you do things, a lot of promiscuity, and end up with a lot of the sexually oriented diseases, it's because you're going against the design.
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. And so, I'm thrilled to have you here and have you talking so openly about these things, because I think it is a subject that sometimes gets pushed under because we have so many other larger issues that we're also addressing. But again, you and I understand that if the foundations are broken, then it's hard to fix the bigger issues as well.
Well, the inclinations are not there, but as a president should take every issue and do a full court press, and he needs to be a hardworking president. I get so offended. I run a business, and if my business has real financial problems, I'm not playing golf. I'm not taking vacations. I am getting up in the middle of the night and figuring out how can I get the cash flow to make it work next time.
Absolutely.
And that's just, to me, is so basic. And the one thing that I guarantee I would bring to it is it would be full court press on every issue. Pro-life, you need to improve the culture. The thing about a government, they have the resources. To me, it's kind of unbelievable. Small business owner very rarely has resources. And he has to, without very many resources, continue the business, take care of the customers, not be tempted to cut the quality of the product because he needs a little more profit, and he needs to take care of them down the road. I went to a Christmas party about a month ago, and a client was not a conservative Republican, and she was an attorney. And I look around the room, and there are 4 clients that were there that were clients of mine, referred by her because apparently they were satisfied with the product, and one of them was sitting there trying to sell somebody else. So the point is, if you're a business owner, you take care of everybody. You don't make judgments about people.
True.
And you deliver a quality product. And if you're a president or you're a member of Congress, you need to do the same thing.
Right.
They're there depending on you. They're paying money to you. I make the point, we need to be treated like customers of the government.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
I'm in Houston this has been about 4 years ago, and I've never forgotten this. And I'm working in the 4th floor of the Harris County Administration Building doing some research on real estate, and one of the ladies told the other person, "You have a customer." And I thought, wow, I'm a customer in the government. So I started checking around, and the county judge told me the guy named Paul Betancourt, who calls himself the tax man there, said that was his idea. And the Harris County government is fabulous.
Oh,
because
wonderful.
they focus on people as customers.
Customer service.
You have to call something properly, just like not calling a terrorist a terrorist. If you don't call something properly, you can't deal with it properly.
The actions don't follow. That's a great point. Yeah, what are your thoughts on securing our borders, per se?
Well, Hispanics, there are a lot of them in Houston, and they're family-oriented, good workers, but it's out of control now. But the real issue is 1 out of 5 that come across the South Texas border are not Hispanics. They're somebody else. It's a real security issue. And you need to do a mix of things, basically, is probably build a wall. Business people don't say, well, I'm going to build a wall for 1,000 miles. I mean, you don't do that. You build a wall for 100 miles. How does it work? You adjust. I make the point continually that the difference between business people and politicians is the business person makes a decision, monitors how good it is, modifies it to make it better, and then goes on. Politicians, most of whom are trial lawyers, liberal trial lawyers, they make a decision and then they defend it to the death because they're trained never to admit error in a courtroom. So when you have people in government that won't admit error, a business person does that, he would be around about 2 weeks.
Gosh, I never thought of it like that, but I can see.
It's a natural. People are a result of their habits. And Barack Obama's biggest problem, he was a community organizer, which basically tries to obtain money to then influence other people. And if you do that and you go to the White House, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I know another issue that's come before me is our veterans and the fact that we now have a huge number of veterans that are returning, many who are severely, hurt and not going to be able to go back to a normal, life, and that we are not really prepared well enough to help to retrain these individuals. And we're also looking at cutting our defense budget in a tremendous amount. So what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think you would do to try to support?
The most heartwarming experience I've had over the weekend, they pull in the Manchester airport, and the flight attendant mentions to the people on board, said, we have a soldier returning from, I think, Afghanistan, and spontaneously people applauded. That just really touched me. But I'm a veteran. I'm Army Reserves.
Thank you for your service.
And during the Vietnam War, but I did not serve in Vietnam like a lot of people did. I met a Marine veteran today that had 7 tours of duty in a barbershop today, and I was so impressed. He was just a young man, well-built guy, and very well trained. And cutting defense budget. If you're a Christian, all you have to do is read the Bible, a few books, and you realize humans are not just wonderful people. They do damage to each other, and God was pretty severe on certain groups of them. And you have to be aware of the danger, particularly radical Islamic groups.
Absolutely.
And although as Christians you should basically accept any person, any religion that's duty is to kill Americans or kill people in our country, that needs to be addressed frontally. They need to separate. Muslims need to separate the ones that are radical and the ones that want to just live here peacefully. They need to do that themselves, in my opinion.
Well, that's a very good point. And but I wanted to go back again to actually what kind of resources do you think that we could put together to help support our veterans that are coming back?
The first thing you do is to prioritize, and I have always said the first dollar that's spent on anything for quasi-welfare or helping or health care or whatever needs to go to veterans. Somebody who puts their life on the line for us needs to be the first in line for any resources we have. I support that, whatever it takes. And everything else is secondary. Because without that, these young men are volunteering. In my day, they were drafted.
Right, exactly.
And what if people decide not to volunteer? We have a real problem.
Yeah, we do.
No, I support them unequivocally.
And I'm glad to hear that, because I would like to see a lot more done to support our veterans.
Yeah. And the health care issues, they come back and they've been through trauma that you and I can't even imagine.
Absolutely.
And as I told this young soldier today, in my day, the soldier just needed to learn how to fire a rifle and go through certain strategic stuff. Today, he has to decide like a policeman. Mm-hmm. Is this somebody that's carrying a bomb? Is it a young child that's going to be blown up in front of me?
Yes.
Their skill level is unbelievable. And then they have to train villagers to, hopefully not hate Americans. I've said, in fact, throughout the campaign, the wars being won in Afghanistan and the elementary schools in Afghanistan where they're training them not to hate Americans.
Yeah, and one of the things that you don't hear very much about in the media is all the good things that the businesses here in America have done, the amount of materials that we have sent over to help in those countries because they were in terrible disarray when we went there. And from rebuilding their water sewer systems to electrical to everything, hospitals, they were still in the 1920s. And our service people have played a huge role in that, in rebuilding and bringing those people into the 21st century.
And with the internet, people in other countries are more aware of what other countries like us are doing. And if we can just instill in them that it's better to live in a quasi-free, even if it's very tribal as it is in Afghanistan, over time, they'll end up living in a normal way and won't want to do the bad things they do. Obama pulling 20,000 troops out of Iraq, I was just very disturbed on that. Strategically, we were essentially a placekeeper by having that there. The Sunnis and the Shiites were not at each other's throats, and now they're gone. And what do you tell the mother of somebody who lost a son in Iraq that her son's life was wasted? 5,000 people lost their lives for freedom, and if it goes back where it was, you sit.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's beyond me why they're taking that kind of approach. But
well, it's a political thing. I mean, we're in a political season, and you should do what's right. And on my website, I list my position on 97 issues, which politically may not be smart because people tend to vote against you. But I figure if they know what I stand for, they know what they're buying.
Right.
And if every politician did that, then people would make a choice that would be their choice, not some image that's fabricated for whatever purpose.
Oh, absolutely. So I would also assume that you're very much a constitutionalist, and that you believe the executive order is not the main main instrument for the president to make decisions.
Well, I make the point, and it's a little different. You don't normally see it. Madison, when he designed the Constitution, said government in the same hands results in tyranny. He wrote the Constitution, so he designed it with 3 branches of government.
That's right.
As a check and a balance. And you rarely think about this, but today we have a president that's an attorney, you have all the Supreme Court that are attorneys, and you have half of Congress that's attorneys. You have 80% of your government in the hands of one profession. Now, they could all be nurses or doctors or whatever. Human beings, being what they are, it would not be a good check and balance. So you really don't have a check and balance anymore. And although, a lot of these people are honorable people, they're operating according to the way they think. And one way of thinking in 3 branches of government for the whole country of one profession is not a good way to think.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that point out again. And I think the thing that I'm struggling with is I hear different executive orders that are coming out that are clearly things that Congress should be approving. I'm astounded at how this can be allowed to be continued.
Well, I guess all you can do is a lawsuit. There was one, I think, yesterday, and my memory doesn't serve exactly what it was. I think it dealt with a union issue, and basically passed it, and it's basically unconstitutional what he did. He bypassed Congress. I think was in session, so he was not able to do his recess appointment.
Yes, that's right.
It was yesterday.
That's right.
And they said, well, yes, he can't. Well, czars are not constitutional. It's beyond. I know the Constitution to me, the Bible is number 1, our Constitution is number 2. And of course, the Constitution was based essentially on the Bible because our founders were essentially Christian people. That's why the country was set up with the balance that it was, and why, in my opinion, God's blessed us all these years.
Yes, I have the same sentiments. And many of them were graduates of institutions like Harvard and other schools, and those schools universities were built specifically to have well-educated ministers of the gospel. And I know for the Founding Fathers, it was very important for them to have an educated populace because they said it's the only way that they will be able to maintain this form of government that we have given them.
My ancestors, when they came to Texas 150 years ago, on my father's side settled in Spring, mother's side settled in a town of 250 people near Austin. And the first building they had, they were discriminated against in Germany. They couldn't own property. There were winds, and they came to Texas, and the first buildings they built were the school, then the church, because they felt it was kind of pretty much simultaneously, but they felt educating the children was extremely important. And to this day, there's, of course, Lutheran schools like their Catholic schools and a lot of other denominational schools.
Right.
And Paul Johnson wrote a book, The History of America, which I happen to like, and he has a kind of a conservative bent, and he believes that America prospered because of the stabilizing influence of religion through all those years There was one thing, I met a guy on the plane yesterday that was Danish, and he essentially agreed with me totally. And of course, they have a state church there. It's a little bit different. But it's a stabilizing influence, and as he said, it's the community. I mean,
right.
Originally, people have gotten more away from that, but that's not to our benefit.
Well, I know here in New Hampshire, a new bishop was just installed for the Catholic, the diocese here.
Oh.
And in the newspaper article, he openly stated about how important it was for the family to be involved in community, but for all of them to work together as community, because that's what makes strong foundations, provides protection for the women and children. And I was just so thrilled to hear that, because that's something that we've all known, right?
Yes.
And for generations we've known that, and that's why we have been able to prosper. I mean, our prosperity comes from the fact that we recognize that the family is the core unit.
That's right.
And it's from that engine we're able to bring about such strong inventors and all of these other wonderful things that happen here, the opportunity here in the United States.
What happened in the 50s when the taxation started increasing after government spending, the wife then now needed to work outside the home more than they did back in the 50s, and then of course the children didn't have the opportunity to be raised as well normally, and you see a series of problems that pretty much, I mean, I grew up with, my mother was out of the home after I was in high school, but at that time it was less likely for both parents to work.
Right.
And it's harder to raise children. My hat's off to people that, I have one customer, and I customer a friend in Ames, Iowa, that they have 5 children, and they started a business, and each one were working a job. Now, is that a stress or what?
Wow. I think that's a little bit more than I could do.
Most people can't do that. You know, my hat's off to anybody that can raise children. Raising children is not an easy thing.
No, and it's the most important job you can ever do.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and being here with us and sharing, and I think it's marvelous the work that you're doing, and I thank you for that, bringing that ability for us to recognize, hey, you know what, this government is for the average person, not just for those who can get the most, you know, on the screen. And so I really appreciate that, and I'm glad that you've been back here again. And,
well, I enjoyed it myself, and thanks very much for asking. It's an opportunity to say what I believe about, you know, my faith and so forth.
Well, God bless you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I wish you much success.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're so thrilled that you were here with us, and won't you please join us again for our next Upfront and Personal series with presidential candidates for 2012. God bless you.